There is a major tentative trade development between the U.S. and China. The countries announced this morning they will temporarily slash tariffs for a 90-day period while negotiations continue. The U.S. will lower its tariffs on some Chinese imports from 145% to 30%. And as you see on your screen, China will slash its levies on American goods from 125% to 10%. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent spoke about the agreement just a few hours ago.
We concluded that we have shared interest, and we both have an interest in balanced trade. Both sides on the reciprocal tariffs will move their tariffs down 115%.
Now, we've got team coverage on this for you this morning. Anna Coren is in Hong Kong following the response from China. But let's begin with Natalie Brand over at the White House. Natalie, good morning to you. What more do we know about this tentative trade deal?
Good morning, Errol. What's so interesting about this is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent really went into this weekend's meetings ahead of it trying to downplay expectations that there would be a big breakthrough or deal announced, instead saying really they wanted to de-escalate the tariff tensions between these two countries. But instead, now we have news of this significant development and breakthrough. As you detailed, what we know about this temporary pause is the tariffs on Chinese goods imposed by the U.S. would come down to that 30% rate. That means those fentanyl tariffs remain in place in addition to a 10% baseline. And on the Chinese side, the tariff on U.S. goods would come down to 10% while these negotiations continue for the next 3 months, 90 days here. Now, the White House, in a new statement, noted that both sides really recognizing the importance of the trade and economic relationship between these two countries, not only to each other, but to the global economy. And the Treasury Secretary in that news conference saying that both sides, noting they don't want to decouple, but really critical negotiations remain ahead in the next 90 days. And the White House feeling confident that it can make progress on some of these key areas that the administration has been talking about. The trade deficit with China at nearly $300 billion, what the administration calls unfair trade practices, and of course the issue of fentanyl. Errol.
Yeah, an encouraging development for investors. We'll see how the markets in the U.S. react when they open in about 2.5 hours' time. Natalie Brand, thank you. Let's cross over to CBS News foreign correspondent Anna Coren. She, of course, is following developments for us from Hong Kong. Anna, this is temporary, but still, what is the reaction to this in your part of the world?
Well, certainly a great sense of relief, Errol. There's no doubt about it. It's been a tough 6 weeks since President Trump declared Liberation Day. And we know that Chinese businesses have been doing it exceptionally tough, although they were prepared to weather the storm. Look, I've spoken to a couple of the business people I've been dealing with and have visited over the last couple of months, one being a candy manufacturer. Most of his business goes to the US, and he said, this is good news. I can start doing business again. Another businesswoman who makes insulated water bottles, and once again, a large chunk of her business also was going to the US. She was looking to diversify markets. She is ecstatic. She said this is a day to celebrate, that she's going to go home and pop open the champagne. But look, despite the joy and optimism, we have to keep things in perspective. This is a reprieve, a 90-day reprieve. This is not a trade deal. And we heard from Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, saying the mechanism is now in place for talks to happen. But these are two countries that are poles apart. Their needs, their requirements, incredibly different. So how they reach that in the next 90 days, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and Anna, we noticed as Beijing was publicly defiant toward the Trump administration. At this point, have the tariffs had an impact yet on the Chinese economy?
Yeah, absolutely, Errol. We've seen it in the economic data coming out of China. I was in China last month. We went to the Canton Fair. This is the largest import-export trade fair in the country. I was speaking to business people who were telling me, this is painful. Our US suppliers, our US buyers, have just cancelled orders. All production shipments have stopped, and they have to wear the pain. So obviously this is going to start moving again, and that is obviously the takeaway that we're getting from the business people that we've spoken to in the last few hours. But I've also spoken to economists here in Hong Kong who believe that this is President Trump caving in, that he does not have the stomach to endure the pain that his revolution was going to cause insofar as correcting the trade imbalances, which he felt was a disadvantage to the United States. So another economist said, obviously, neither side had the stomach for the pain. But one thing I think is really important to note, Errol, before I go, is that the cancellation of these orders, they are already in the system. So US companies, US consumers, they are going to feel this in the next few months when there are no goods on the shelves.
Yeah, Anna, that is a very important point. Anna Coren joining us from Hong Kong.